No, it's frustrating because I mean we both know the amount of untruths that were spoken by the mainstream media, but they will never be held accountable. They will never be held to the same standards as citizen journalists on X. We know that they will be protected, and it is absolutely two tiers of society. It really is,
Yeah.
and
Let's think it's
it's
more
quite a
than
scary place to be.
policing.
But yeah, no,
Because
it's shocking, and I really feel that the country is heading for a tipping point. But I would urge people not to fall for the bear traps. What was it? Government overreach into my life. That is the tipping point for me. I want to live my life with as little government interference as possible. And the minute they started telling me I wasn't allowed to leave my house, or I was only allowed to leave my house for 1 hour a day to do some exercise, um, was a massive overreach. Given that what we pretty much knew at the time.
and it is an absolute delight to have Matt Le Tissier. Of course, you know him best as a football legend, but I knew him best as a warrior for free speech, someone who is prepared to speak up against the narrative, actually at great personal cost to himself. So, with everything going on in this country at the moment, I knew I had to have Matt on the show. And Matt, this is becoming more chilling, right? By the day.
More chilling by the day, and something that we were all warning about 3 or 4 years ago. And these things are just coming true, and it's all happening, just starting to speed up a little bit the last few months, and especially since the Labour government have come in. And yeah, it's pretty spectacular the way it's going. But I'm still pretty confident that they will not win. They cannot win. They
Spe-
will not be allowed to win.
Spectacular for all the wrong reasons. And actually, I knew you'd care about this one. The Daily Telegraph today reporting that a secretive COVID era spy agency brought in to monitor social media during riots is being used. It's the National Security Online Information Team, which is going to play a central role in response to the violence they say is sweeping the UK. Rupert Lowe, the Reform UK MP, tweeted about this, saying this shady government unit monitoring British citizens needs to be dragged into the light. But what do you make of this? What do you make of the fact that the government is now patrolling our free speech? This is not happening in lots of other Western societies, Matt.
No, it's not. You're right. It is quite chilling the way it's going, and Rupert Lowe has a great point. And I've probably got on with Rupert a lot better the last couple of years than I did when he was chairman of Southampton Football Club when I was playing back in the day. Um, so it's a small world, but we've certainly got
I
very similar
forgot there was
views on
that connection.
so we've certainly got very similar views on the way the world is going at the moment. That's for sure.
Do you feel scared, Matt? Because I have to be honest,
I,
doing
I
what I do, it's really worrying.
No, I do not let fear rule my life in any way, shape, or form.
No, you've proven
And I
that.
think that's the one piece of advice I would give to somebody when they say, well, what can we do about it? Well, the first thing is don't be afraid for a start, because um, the people in charge, they prey on your fear. They use that against you, and they want you to be scared. They want you to keep you in a state of fear because it stops you from thinking rationally, stops you from critically thinking. And so, yeah, I decided a long time ago that yeah, I'm not afraid of anything. And as you rightly said, I'm quite happy to put my opinions out there, and to just to let people know that they won't shut me up no matter how much they try to cancel me. They're not going to shut me up. I'm not going to stop talking, because I think
And
it's
they
far too
have tried,
important for the
Matt.
future.
They have tried.
Oh,
It's interesting, isn't
trust
it?
me, they've
Because
had a good go.
yeah, because when you've been a sporting hero, it's interesting, isn't it? It's almost as if people want you to become like an elder statesman where you don't offend anyone. And some people actually are really disappointed when someone like you wades into controversial issues. So I guess in lots of ways it would have been much easier for you to just say, well, I'm a legend, I'll take the coin, I'll keep doing my events, I'll keep talking about football. So what was it that made you actually decide, no, 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 this is far too important for me to stay silent?
What was it? Government overreach into my life. That is the tipping point for me. I want to live my life with as little government interference as possible. And the minute they started telling me I wasn't allowed to leave my house, or I was only allowed to leave my house for 1 hour a day to do some exercise, um, was a massive overreach, given that what we pretty much knew at the time. So that for me was the tipping point of government taking the mickey with their powers.
Indeed. And the thing is, if we all took that approach, then actually it would become impossible for this draconian and authoritarian approach to what we do becoming the norm. But I want to show you this clip from Stephen Parkinson, who is now the Director of Public Prosecutions. That's Keir Starmer's old job. And listen to the way that he talks about folk even retweeting information relating to the riots.
The offence of incitement to racial hatred involves publishing or distributing material which is insulting or abusive, which is intended to or likely to start racial hatred. So if you retweet that, then you're republishing that, and then potentially you're committing that offence. And we do have dedicated police officers who are scouring social media. Their job is to look for this material and then follow up with identification arrests and so forth. So it's a really, really serious. People might think they're not doing anything harmful. They are, and the consequences will be visited upon them.
The consequences will be visited upon them. Well, Elon Musk responded to that, Matt, by describing it as the woke Stasi. And he always has such a brilliant way, I think, of framing the madness that's going on. He also has the woke mind virus. But let me tell you, Matt, news just breaking from the Cheshire police, who say they have arrested a 55-year-old woman from near to Chester on suspicion of a number of offences in relation to a social media post containing inaccurate information about the identity of the attacker in the Southport murders. The Chief Superintendent, Alison Ross, said, "We have all seen the violent disorder that has taken place across the UK over the past week, much of which has been fueled by malicious and inaccurate communications online. It's a stark reminder of the dangers of posting information on social media platforms without checking the accuracy. It also acts as a warning that we are all accountable for our actions, whether that be online or in person." What is happening to our country? Someone who was a citizen journalist reporting information that they thought to be accurate at the time. This is nuts. I'm genuinely really worried.
It is nuts. You're absolutely right. It's quite shocking what they're trying to do. But it's just absolutely crazy, because they are basically policing your freedom of speech. You should be allowed to view your opinion. See, I'm a free speech absolutist. Now, I think everybody should be allowed to say anything, because you can't actually offend somebody. You can only take offense, because it's your choice. It's your choice whether you want to.
Yes.
Whether you want to.
And daylight is the best disinfectant,
something.
Right? If you
Absolutely.
try and cover things up, then 9 times out of 10, we know that there's a reason for it happening. And we're going to be even more interested in the truth, or as you know, as the establishment describe it these days, a conspiracy theory. Because most of these conspiracy theories, Matt, as we've seen over the past few years, end up coming true.
Yeah, and it's also interesting that the people being arrested, the ones for all these crimes, they all seem to be just from one side of the political divide, which is a little bit suspicious.
Suspicious.
In my eyes, very suspicious. There is two-tier policing without any shadow of a doubt, and perhaps those police officers who are patrolling the internet trying to find a way to be offended and arrest people, perhaps they should be relocated to, I don't know, maybe looking out for grooming gangs and things like that, and the really serious crimes. That would be
gangs,
really useful.
Terrorism, rape, all of those other crimes that have been imported into this country by the day. I couldn't agree more, but I just think we really have to think loud and clear whether we want a society where sending a tweet, or I should now say a post on X, because Elon Musk has done incredible things with the platform, and actually Twitter was all about censorship. Elon Musk is all about free speech absolutism, like your approach, Matt. But if we really want a world where an ordinary person who just happened to be sharing information that they thought was accurate, if they can be arrested, I think we can wave goodbye to our freedom. I think this is already an authoritarian government, actually. I know they've only been in power for 4 weeks. I know we saw a lot of it during COVID under the Conservative Party, but this is ramping up a level. And there's going to be a lot of people like me, Matt, who have to seriously consider, well, is it going to be possible to broadcast truthfully from the UK? Or will I actually have to be broadcasting about the UK from overseas, which is just nuts?
It is absolutely nuts. I don't really know where you're going to go with that. I think we, as you say, disinfectant is you've got to show the light to everybody. And if you do go to a different country, you're almost giving up and letting them win. Whereas if you actually broadcast and then you get arrested and then it comes to light that what you were actually talking about was actually true, then you'll be vindicated. The law will be shown to be an ass, and we can remove that law. So it's an interesting.
Well, I am going to
way
stand
of doing
fight.
things.
But first, you know that I'm only going to talk to you about products I really believe in on Outspoken. So I really want to let you know about Verso. I've entered my 40s. The importance of staying healthy as I age has become critical for me, and I've decided to start focusing on prioritizing my health so I can stay as fit and sharp as possible while living a good life and still being busy and engaged. I now exercise virtually every day, take my nutrition seriously with the 16/8 fast, but that only gets me so far. Scientists like David Sinclair have proven we can now reverse aging with interventions that go beyond healthy habits. So for me, I wanted a product that I knew would enhance everything I was already doing that is backed up with solid evidence. So I chose Cell Being by Verso. It has scientifically proven ingredients that fight the effects of aging by increasing NAD+ levels. And I've been taking the product now for a number of months. At the start of my day, it's been genuinely transformative for me. Fasting is so much easier. I find the 16/8 super easy now, actually. I'm eating less too. The weight is down. I've lost a stone. And I'm sleeping better, waking up with more energy and feeling so much happier too. Basically, it's already taken years off me, and I would love you to experience the same thing. Verso publishes third-party testing from each batch produced to guarantee you are getting what you paid for. Now, I'm very excited to say that to mark the launch of Outspoken, Verso, our very first sponsor, so I love them forever, is giving you an amazing offer. If you head now to buy.ver.so/outspoken, you'll save 15% on your first order. All you have to do is enter the coupon code OUTSPOKEN. The link is right now in our YouTube and Rumble descriptions, but to repeat, bui.ver.so/outspoken, use the coupon code OUTSPOKEN. Matt Le Tissier, so I wanted to show you some footage from the past 24 hours, because again, it shows how the mainstream media can just not be trusted with their reportage. Now, obviously, I know you spoke out about this a lot in the COVID era, but at the moment, it's obviously in relation to the protests or the riots or however you want to describe what's been going on in our streets. So last night, we had all of the main broadcasters, the British Basketball Corporation, Sly News, Woke ITV, saying that these anti-racism protests were just a haven, Matt, of peace and harmony, and everyone was just singing Kumbaya in the streets. But it was only actually via citizen journalists on X that exposed this man called Ricky Jones in Walthamstow. Watch this. He says, Matt, and what I love is you've got the sort of middle-class white woman from Amnesty International behind him, smiling along and clapping her hands, because that's what the woke mob believe in, this sort of two-tier society where if you're from one part of the community, it's absolutely fine to make those types of threats. If you're a white working-class person, you should be locked up immediately. Now, I'm sure you'll agree with me on this. I don't actually want Ricky Jones to be locked up either. But the problem is This is what Labour have now created. They're creating this society where speech is being criminalised. And given they're being accused of two-tier policing, which we both agree is going on, then if they don't arrest and jail this bloke, they look like total hypocrites.
They do indeed, and I'm wondering if that's actually a tactic for them to use to get us to say, well, you should be arresting him, when actually that's not what we really believe in. We believe that you should be able to have free speech. So we mustn't keep falling into the traps that are being set. And I believe that's exactly what's happening. I think the government are setting their own traps for people to fall into, which enables them then to bring in more draconian laws and to get to their ultimate aim, which is obviously the digital ID and the CBDCs, where they can monitor and track every purchase that you make. And that's,
But it's coming, isn't it, Matt? It's coming. How do we stop it now? Because the problem is they're going to use any event like what happened in Southport to immediately change the narrative. And as you say, immediately head towards digital ID, which we know Tony Blair, who is such an influential force in this government, is pushing for, because it's like his life's mission.
It is indeed. And actually, if you're going to really start to criminalise people, we should probably look at the Iraq War and what he did back then. And probably
Alistair Campbell.
I think probably rescind his knighthood maybe and actually charge him with what he should be charged with. I mean, that would be a start. Nice. But yeah, as we know, these people are never held to account because they're protected by obviously incredibly wealthy people who have got enough money to bribe the judicial system.
I know, but
bribe
when you
the
have
media,
Alistair Campbell
whatever.
And Tony Blair talking about truth and honesty and misinformation and disinformation, it's like I want my head to explode. It's like I'm in a parallel universe.
No, it's frustrating because I mean we both know the amount of untruths that were spoken by the mainstream media, but they will never be held accountable. They will never be held to the same standards as citizen journalists on X. We know that they will be protected, and it is absolutely two-tier society. It really is, and it's
more
quite a
than
scary
policing.
place to be. But yeah, no, it's shocking, and I really feel that the country is heading for a tipping point. But I would urge people not to fall for the bear traps, because I think that's what the government want. I think we need to find a way of peacefully protesting, and not turning it into riots. We have to make sure that if you are going to protest, that you're not infiltrated by government agitators to make it look bad, which is what happens.
Members of Antifa from the hard left.
Yeah. So you've got to be really careful. So I'd say don't be afraid, but don't fall into the bear trap.
Yeah, because the problem is, by falling into that bear trap over the past week, and I totally understand the anger, but I'm never someone who has been a proponent of street violence in any form, and I'm very consistent on this, actually. I was against the Black Lives Matter violence demonstrations. I was against all of the eco-terrorists, the Just Stop Oil, Insulate Britain. I was against the pro-Hamas violence. It's not that I don't believe in peaceful protests. It's just I think, as you say, it's so easy to fall into that trap. But it was interesting, wasn't it? Because Nick Lowles, who runs this organisation called Hope Not Hate, which is so ironic because they're such a hateful organisation, but he's admitted today that actually all of this talk of the 100 far-right, quote-unquote, protests was actually a false flag. He's used the word hoax, and all of the media just lap it up. I mean, it's really frustrating.
It is frustrating because I think the most frustrating part about it is there's a small percentage of us that are able to take a step back and look at things objectively and understand why these things are happening. But there's also a big portion of the public who still think that because it's on the BBC or because it's on ITV that this is the actual truth that's being told, when we indeed know from our experiences in that side of things that there's a lot of misinformation that comes out of those organisations, and yet they're the ones that are policing the misinformation.
Oh, I know.
So
well, you have
I've always
the BBC
said,
Verified department, but they never check out their own information, do they? Which is so often
Mariana
false.
Springs CV would have come to light if they had done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, what did you make of the fact that the BBC have also now seemingly covered up for another, well, child sex offender, I guess is how you would describe Hugh Edwards?
You're allowed to call him a paedophile if you want.
I was close to doing so. Could you tell?
Yeah.
I was close to doing so. I mean, look, the BBC has been a haven for paedophiles, Matt, a haven for paedophiles. And there are now even suggestions, and by the way, you know I don't ever use the phrase conspiracy theory for the reason that we discussed, because so often these conspiracy theories become true. So I will say there are suggestions that Jill Dando may have actually been murdered because back in the 90s, she was looking into the paedophile ring at the BBC. And yet here we are again in 2024.
Yeah, history does tend to repeat itself. And I think there's what's also interesting is there seems to be quite a few people with the prefix of Sir who have turned out to be paedophiles. I mean, really, if you're giving out those kind of awards, you should be maybe looking a little bit deeper into people's past and their reputations to see if they actually deserve that kind of title.
So how do we transform the media in this country, Matt? I mean, it's obviously something that after my experience of the past year, I'm desperately trying to do. I know there's an appetite for it, but you also know how quickly everyone comes down on you when they want you to shut up, when they want you to be cancelled. So in the US, there's a much, much more active and very positive free speech space led by folk like Tucker Carlson and Dan Bongino and Megyn Kelly, who are all so free, but they are protected by their First Amendment, that they have a completely different approach to free speech than we do here.
Yeah, I think we've taken our eye off the ball here, and I include myself in that, because I think there's been things that have happened in the government. They've changed laws almost, on the sly, with people not really knowing about it, that enable them to put themselves in the position they're in at the moment, and to try and dictate what you can and what you can't say. So yeah, we don't seem to have the protection of that constitution, but I'm telling you now, the governments, it's been so frustrating to see them kind of label all these protesters and the rioters, label them as anti, or label them as racists because they're concerned about the amount of immigration that's going on in this country and the legality of that. And yet what they never seem to admit is the fact that what they're doing as a government is putting other people from other countries, their priorities are those people ahead of the people in this country. And I think once you start doing that, that's almost an act of war on your own people. And you're just asking for trouble then. So the governments have got to look at themselves for a massive part of the reason why the troubles that we're seeing at the moment, and they've got to, at some point, they're going to have to draw back from this, because they won't be able to walk the streets at some point.
Indeed. I want to speak too, though, about the responsibility of sporting organisations. So I don't know if you saw this story today, but it's about a Scottish footballer who I hadn't heard of, but you may have. He's a midfielder called Cammy McPherson, who's part of St Johnstone FC. 25-year-old guy, seems completely normal bloke. He retweeted the Tommy Robinson post about his film, which has been censored, and the football club, Matt, are now investigating him. There's stories all over the BBC about it. He's been slammed on social media. Again, this is for a retweet.
I know it's such a bizarre world that we're even having to talk about stuff like that. It's just incredible. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, I know about the film. I haven't seen the film, but the fact that he's just retweeted it to allow other people, if they want to have a look at it, have a look at it. And this has been my point over the last few years, is that people should be able to access all the information that they want, and they should be able to make their own decision if they trust that information, if they trust the person the information's come from, and if they trust that information is true, because nobody is the arbiter of the truth. Who are you gonna trust with, the ultimate truth? You're going to trust your government, because I'm telling you now, they are the last people on this planet I would trust with anything. They are just not competent individuals, and I have zero trust in them. So the only solution to that is to allow everybody to say everything, and for each individual to be able to be open to all sorts of information and to be able to make their own mind up on what they think is true or not. End of.
Yeah. And you think eventually we will win?
Oh, I do. We have to win. And there's more of us than them. There's way more of us than them. And they are frightened of us coming together, which is why you see all the divide and conquer tactics, which is what's been going on. It wouldn't surprise me if, there's paid agitators that have been out on the streets the last couple of nights. If there's more tonight, it wouldn't surprise me if you looked into it, if they were paid by governments or, people like George Soros and those individuals who like to create unrest in countries that they have an agenda in.
I am almost certain that those first riots, or quote unquote riots, were infiltrated by Antifa, because there's so much motivation for Antifa to cause unrest in this country at the start of this Labour government, in order to give Starmer an excuse to crack down on free speech and become far more authoritarian. And actually, I don't know if you saw it, but there was this really, really shocking moment where a man was arrested by a female police officer. And actually, Elon Musk ended up posting this video. And he was arrested, Matt, for, again, and this is all coming back to a recurring theme, but for a post on Facebook. And I want to show you what happened, because this man is not a particularly well guy, and it was just really bizarre. Watch this.
I'm arresting you on suspicion of improper use of the electronic communications network. I'm just
what?
127 of the Communications Act, okay? So you do not have to say that it may harm your defence if you don't mention one question, something which you later are in court. Anything you do say may be given evidence. Do you understand that?
So I'm actually being arrested?
You're going to be arrested, okay?
Right.
So you got to the police station.
Right.
Okay, this is in relation to some comments that you've made on a Facebook page. Okay.
Oh, really? Oh, it's a Facebook crime, is it?
Okay.
Right.
So we need to ask you some questions about that.
Right.
Have you got anything in your pockets, Thomas?
I mean, Matt, they, as you say, they will allow grooming gangs to run rampant, and yet they're arresting elderly men for apparently inappropriate posts on Facebook. I mean, by the way, go into any Facebook group, you could literally arrest hundreds and hundreds of people. They could spend all their time becoming the thought police. But I don't know. I guess they're trying to make a point.
I hope we're going to build some more prisons. This could be fun.
Yes, indeed.
Honestly, this is the world gone mad. And I think Nick's well, I was listening before when he said
Nick
about
Buckley.
the authoritarians. Yeah, when he said about the authoritarians will always get, as they come into the end of it, they'll always get desperate and they'll start cracking down more and more. And I think that's the phase that we're in at the moment. But yeah, there's no way they're getting away with that.
What's your advice, Matt, for folk who are afraid to speak up?
As I said earlier on, do not be afraid is probably one of the best things you can do in your life. It allows you to think critically about things. It doesn't stop you from being in fear was the thing that they had over us in COVID. That's what they did to be able to control everybody. They made everyone scared, and if you're not scared, you can think properly about things and you can come to proper logical conclusions as opposed to the nonsense stuff that we get from the government. So don't be afraid. Think clearly about things, and do not obey ridiculous diktats from authoritarians like the governments that we've had down these last few years.
You have no regrets?
Oh, yeah, I got some regrets.
But for speaking up?
I have no regrets about speaking up. My one regret is probably I haven't spoken up enough.
I love that.
If I'm honest, because that's and I think I maybe if I'd spoken up more, more people would have actually been brave enough themselves to come out and say what they think. And the most frustrating thing is the amount of messages I've had privately from people who agree with everything that I've said, and then I get the but at the end of it, where it's but I can't say anything because I need to keep my job. I mean, what kind of society do we live in when people are frightened to voice their own opinions on things? It's disgusting.
I got a lot of them too, actually. But that's why I called my show Outspoken, because I think we need to embrace people who are outspoken in lots of different ways, because actually otherwise we're going to end up a society that is completely captured and controlled by the sorts of elites who we saw over the COVID pandemic have the most nefarious intentions about what they want to do with our society. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please do subscribe if you want lots more clips and interviews like that. Plus, if you want to watch our totally uncensored after show, then visit www.outspoken.live.